Two hers, two bets, and of course the colorful collection of crazy people. A couple of months ago, I had the distinct privilege of meeting and making friends with Dan of Vagabond Awake, a very popular YouTube travel channel. And Dan and I were able to get together, hang out a little bit, get to know each other as people. And then him and I collaborated, I think, over a month ago, and did videos on each other's channels. And we talked about retirement overseas. And we pretty much talked about, how to make it an easy transition, things that you should do. It was more of an informative video to try to make the transition over here to Southeast Asia, not necessarily just the Philippines, as easy and as smooth as possible. Everyone should expect to hit some road bumps. We freely admitted that we did. We decided, since he's going to be unfortunately leaving in a few days off to another country, that we would do one more collaboration together. And this one has a little different tone than our first one. This is talking about what we have not only experienced ourselves, but have also personally observed some real train wrecks, some real crash and burns, some real retirement failures. Stay tuned. Here comes the videos. All right. Well, as I said in the introduction, I'm here with my buddy Dan.
Hey, how's it going?
I just want to go on the record that I'm here at his house against my will. They got my wife chained to the refrigerator until we do a video.
Sorry, Paul. Sorry, Paul. It's just how we got to do it.
But anyway, it's always a pleasure to have Dan on the channel. And we're going to talk about expat train wrecks. And some of the, because who doesn't like a good train wreck, right? And so we've been talking about different topics and different subjects. And I wanted to check with Dan about some of the horror stories that not only have you heard, but you've personally witnessed.
Yeah, sure.
So we can grab a topic like real estate.
Real estate.
How's that?
Yeah. So, if you grew up like Paul and I did in the United States, from birth practically, everyone's all, buy real estate, don't rent. Don't rent is throwing money out the window. And so, and in the U.S. for the most part, over the last 100 years, it was right until recently. Or
the American dream.
The American dream, right? You can write off the interest, and we can rent it and buy a bigger one, just all sorts of things you hear. And so we, when you're talking about going overseas and retiring, the first thing you think is, well, I don't want my rent going up. I got to buy something now, pay cash for it or mortgage it or whatever, and get at least that one expense fixed. And so, that's what a lot of people think. And sure enough, when they get overseas, they're going to run into a realtor or two that wants to sell them something and is going to tell them, you better buy it today because it's going to double in the next 12 months or 2 years, and it's cheap now, but it's going to go crazy. And a lot of people will buy a place. They go somewhere for 2 weeks or a month, and they'll buy a place wherever they're headed to. And so, I don't know. For me, real estate is one of the things that I think you can get hurt pretty bad pretty quickly at, depending on where in the world you're retiring overseas. I mean, like we're in the Philippines here, and you can't even hold title to land, and so it has to be in, maybe your wife or a partner or a corporation, and so right off the bat you're giving some control and power away, and potentially you may not even own that thing once it's so you may not fix the rent by real estate. And then there's all this other stuff that comes up too. I mean, in the U.S., when you buy in a housing tract, it has CC&Rs that say you can't move a slaughterhouse next door, you can't move a bar across the street. But in a lot of the world, they don't have that kind of land use laws, and so you could think you bought the best place on the right street and everything's great, and you know, you move in and a few months later you have a slaughterhouse next door.
Yep.
I grew up in a small town. A slaughterhouse is pretty noisy. And it
And he's
stinks.
a vegetarian. Wonder why?
Probably because of that. Huh? And that's just one example. I mean, then, you know, you hear about people that buy land. Oh, the city will be putting a street here. It's in the plans in the next 24. Oh, yeah, the electric will be coming in, and
Yeah.
all this sort of thing. All these promises are made verbally. But you're in some part of the world you don't know anything about. Maybe you know something about Wisconsin or Florida or wherever
Sure.
you live in.
Sure.
But you don't know anything about real estate overseas, and so it's a bad idea. I think people should live somewhere. And honestly, if you've never lived overseas before, I love it. I would never move back to the U.S. I love the U.S. My family's there. It's a great country. But I feel really good living outside the U.S. now, and I don't know. I want if something were to happen in the Philippines, politically, economically, whatever. I don't really think it's going to happen, but I would want to be able to move along.
Fluidity.
And if I've got a house sitting there that I paid X amount for, and now a slaughterhouse is across the street, how am I going to get my money out of that place?
Right.
It's worth half as much now, especially the rent
Right.
is so reasonable here.
Sure.
And so, I don't know, to me, real estate is something you wait till your second or third year. You're here, you fall in love with the place, you find out what the laws are, you hire a lawyer that's not
Yep.
conflicted with you in some way. You know, they're not your girlfriend's uncle or
Right.
whatever. There's someone you found on your own, and then I would research how to do it right. But I probably wouldn't. I don't think I'll ever buy. I would own in my home country if I were you. Hire a property manager, let them rent it out, get that money, spend it in the Philippines where you can buy more. So that's my recommendation. I would stay away from real estate, investing overseas. There's some exceptions, but the general rule, I think, for most people, if you want an easy peasy retirement, you don't want to deal with all these problems. You don't want to be talking to some government official who shows up and tells you your fence not permitted, or your roof is done wrong, or oh, your electrical all needs to be replaced. By the way, you know, if you a little bit on the side, we can take care of this problem for you.
Sure.
You don't want to deal with all. Let the owner of the property deal with that. You just pay your rent. As long as things are nice on that street, you're there. But if things go bad, you're across town or some part of the country or off to the next country. So
I agree with you 100%. I think that if you're coming over here, and especially if you're single or married, it doesn't really matter. You just rent because it gives you that freedom to pick up and go. We have typhoons.
We do.
Have weather incidences. You look at Hawaii right now.
Yeah.
Poor Hawaii.
Right.
Burnt to a crisp.
Right. Yeah.
Well, they're on an island.
Yeah.
Well, it's similar circumstances here, but here we're foreigners, and so we don't have any real rights or privileges. The only time that I would purchase land would be for my wife, so that it would ensure her future and give her some grounding here and shelter. She's not as picky as I am about the surroundings. So if she owned a little plot of land, that would be a little piece of security that I could leave with her.
Yeah.
But as far as yourself, to come in willy-nilly, new to the country, not familiar with the areas, not familiar with the weather conditions, the political climate, just all the nuances that are involved, I agree with him. It's one of the worst decisions. Have you ever seen any guy build or buy anything and have it just completely collapse on him?
There was a case, we came back from somewhere, I think it was in Central America, and coincidentally, a few months before, we'd been in this town in Costa Rica, and it's a beautiful country, very expensive. I don't recommend it for retirement, but we were just visiting, and when we flew back to the States, or we flew back to Mexico, it was at the time, and we got a taxi driver, and he spoke perfect English, and he was and Spanish, and we asked him where he was from. He said Costa Rica, and he was an American though, and he had bought a house in Costa Rica up in the mountains, and he planned to move back to it at some point. But when he went when he went back to visit, he had people staying there that were taking care of it for him. They were like a groundskeeper, and so he was hoping to go back someday. But he fell in love with a woman in Mexico and decided to stay in Mexico. And so he put it up for sale, and he had it up for sale for 5 or 6 years, and hadn't even had one bite on it. I don't remember the numbers, but at one point he finally said, I had a nice family living there. They were treating it well. It was a grandmother and a grandfather. We had grandkids there, and I didn't want to throw them out. They didn't have the money to get another place. They weren't employed. They were too old to work. And he said, I just finally just gave it to these people and said, you take it. And I was like, wow, I guess there's worse stories than that, because at least he's helping someone. But your plans don't always stay permanent.
No.
And when you're in a foreign country, and you've only been there a few months or a few years, they're even more likely not to be permanent. So, and I've heard many other stories where people they have trouble with a neighbor or this kind of thing, or the city doesn't have any kind of land use laws and stuff like that. So if you ask around an expat, now you'll hear positive, great stories too. Some people it works out for. It's just that unless it's extra money, unless you have more money than you need,
correct, and
you can afford to buy something, or you're doing it like Paul is for his wife to make sure she's fine after he passes away. There's exceptions, but I think the general rule is that you should definitely wait a few years and then hire a good lawyer, depending what country it is,
right,
and make sure it's done right and that you're protected and that you understand what risks you're taking.
Know what you're walking into.
Absolutely.
And one of my little rules that I had when I first came over here, commandments, is never buy anything I couldn't afford to walk away
Absolutely.
from. Which is what your friend did.
Yeah.
The taxi driver.
He walked away. He walked away from
He finally said, you know what, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's done. It's over with.
Yeah.
Cut your losses
and
move on with your life. Now, if he had invested his life savings into it,
wow,
that would have been a horror story.
Yeah.
Speaking of horror stories, let's talk about sending money online.
Oh, yeah.
Let me hear some of your tales of woe.
This is a constant story.
It never ends.
Yeah, it never ends.
And it never will.
And it's all over the world. It's not just in the
Philippines. That's for sure.
It's not just in the Philippines.
That's for sure. Philippines actually gets a bad rap.
It's true.
Because I've had some guys write to me personally, and they say, really, you think that's bad? You should see what's going on in America. It's happening here in Cincinnati, But anyway, since we are here, we'll talk about it.
Yes.
What are some of the common stories? What are some of the common themes?
Absolutely.
And have you had any personal experiences with guys that have told you over a cold beer their tale of woe?
Oh, yeah. I've heard.
Good, let's share it, because we all love misery.
And quite often when people realize they're going to move overseas, they'll put up a profile online. And why not? Whatever. It's going to be 6 months before they can, their Social Security starts. They're going to be on the job for a while. They're curious. Are all these stories true? Are there single eligible bachelors or bachelorettes, whether it's a woman or man that they're looking for, and they'll, sure enough, they'll catch a fish online and they'll chat away for a few weeks or a few months or whatever, and they'll grow, they'll enjoy this person they've met online. They might spend a few hours a day texting and calling, certainly per week. And invariably, I can think of one fellow who seemed very sincere to me. He had met this woman online. I think he was around 60, I would say. And he had met a woman online that was in her mid-30s, as I recall, and they chatted for a few months, and eventually her mother got sick, and he was in love with this woman. He'd met her online, and they were Zoom calling all the time, and he wanted to believe her, of course, he felt it was a sincere relationship, and so he started sending money to her, And it was probably 6 months before he came over. And about 2 weeks before he was set to fly, she wasn't returning the texts or the emails, or she wasn't answering the phone anymore. And so he'd never met her in person. So he doesn't know, did she meet another man? He doesn't know, but he said he'd sent several $1,000s over about a 6-month period. And
Wow.
he doesn't know if she'd met another man or whether she just wasn't even, who she said she was, that she's married. He doesn't know really why she went incommunicado. So he doesn't have that part of the story. We don't know if she was, married with a family and was doing this as a part-time job or what, but that's just one example you'll hear over and over again. And there, apparently there's people that do this like a job. And like Paul said, it's not, the Philippines doesn't have a patent on this concept. No. You'll find it in the U.S. too. Mm-hmm. There are people all over the world that will take advantage. And so I think it's best to, my feeling about dating online is you don't do it 6 months before you're going to go somewhere. I wouldn't do maybe 2 weeks.
Right.
For me, I think you don't want to get attached to somebody and either find out they're not real.
Right.
Or when you meet them in person, it's not the same. It's not, you spent all this energy and all this time.
Right.
And now you're face to face with someone and you don't, it's kind of fades away. You don't feel it for them.
Exactly.
Chemistry is something you really only know till you meet someone face to face. And so I always recommend just, don't put up a profile more than a few weeks before you go to a place. And don't invest so much of your emotion in someone. And that's the nice thing about not trying to do it for months or years in advance, is you can't really invest that much emotion in someone if you're only spending a few weeks getting to know them.
Right.
And in those first few weeks, you're probably emailing or texting or Zoom calling many people that you're interested in, and so you won't be so settled on anyone, and it'll be less comfortable for them to ask for their mother to get sick or all this kind of thing. Or a child needs, they're real people that have real needs. I'm not saying that everyone's a liar in any country, but when you're I think you're kind of setting yourself up for disappointment if you try to spend, months getting to know someone and to find out they're really not who they said they were.
What do you think it is about men that we seem to think that we should throw money at all those problems?
Well, I think it's I think it's a natural. Men often accused of trying to solve problems and not listening. We hear that as men.
What? I'm sorry, I had to do it. My wife tells me that there's two things she can't stand about me.
Yeah.
One is that I don't listen, and something else.
Yeah, so when someone comes to us with a problem, Paul, we want to help them. We want to we don't want to just let them flail about in their life. We want to have a silver bullet that solves that problem for them, and it's particularly the people we care the most about. So as we're get to loving someone, we want their life to go smoothly. So I think that's part of it. And I think there's also we all want to be a knight in white shining armor and help
the white
people.
knight syndrome.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I think it's it's also, I think it's even more true early in an emotional or loving relationship, especially if it's online. You're kind of both presenting the best side of yourself, and you're coming in from America where the dollar is strong, and you're going to be retiring in this country. And they're in a country maybe they're struggling to pay their rent or feed their family or whatever, and it's so little money compared. Like in the U.S., the rent might be $1,500 or $2,000, and over here maybe you could live for that much, depending on what sort of lifestyle you want to live. And now they're just asking for their rent's $300. It doesn't sound like a lot, or they need the mom needs some operation. It's $800. And this is someone that you really see a future with, and so I think we want to feel like we can solve people's problems that we care about, and so I think it's natural, and it's probably normal and reasonable under most circumstances, but I think you should wait and really get to know people before you get that involved with them, where you're making these emotional decisions, before you sat across from them,
Right.
or been in their life physically for a while to really know what they're like. It's easy to pretend you're someone for 30 minutes on a Zoom call or make up stories, but when you live in the same city as someone and you're spending time together, that you really find out who they are. And so I think that's the main idea. You're not going to solve all the world's problems, and you're probably just going to create some for yourself if you try to do long distance romance before you move to one of these countries.
There's also, what I've been reading is that since the pandemic, there's been a tremendous amount of loneliness.
Absolutely.
That has happened as a natural occurrence of all the isolation.
Yeah.
Older men, especially,
Absolutely.
they don't have, women have that ability to connect emotionally and just talk things through.
Yeah.
And there's 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And they're always just like, oh, I just can't wait to hear about your day.
Yeah, yeah.
And men don't have that.
No.
We're just more of abrupt, like, hey,
Yeah.
what's up?
Yeah.
Not much. What you doing? Nothing. I'll see you at lunch? Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
bye. And that's as far as our conversations go.
Yeah.
And now there's this loneliness that's set in.
Yeah.
And I think that's worldwide also.
Yeah.
And so you factor that in with the fact that now you're making this connection with this person that you're really attracted to.
Right.
And you have you're financially more stable than they are.
Yeah.
Or it's ego.
Yeah.
It's the man thing that we're going to come in and solve the problem and fix it and make it right.
Yeah.
And that's going to impress her.
Yeah.
When actually, in many cases, the opposite is true.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of there's 1,001 disaster stories that we've both heard between us, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, and the men often are out of a relationship last year or 5 years ago or whatever, and there's statistics show that men after divorce don't live as long as women for the reasons Paul's saying, because they don't have the ability to connect socially as easily as women do. And
That's true.
And now they're on a phone call or they're on a Zoom call, and there's this attractive woman that's interested in them, and they in their normal life in their regular country they're not getting much attention. They feel invisible, and suddenly there's this person that's interested in them, and so it's almost like they don't really think that through, but it's like, well, only mom loved me this much,
Yeah.
It's kind of this thing going on, like, what is
Yeah.
this? Why did she seem so interested in me?
Yeah.
And hopefully it's true. Hopefully it'll work out when you come. But but try not to go so early and get so attached, because it's probably not good to try to become attached to somebody that you haven't been in the world with physically in this new country you're going to. So
Okay.
and so I think that's really the way to to protect yourself. Really is try not to go. I personally, I wouldn't do more than 2 weeks if I were single, online dating before I moved somewhere. But definitely not 6 months. I mean, you can get in a lot of trouble.
You really can. I think that the only time it's really warranted is if you're looking for information. You can make friends with a woman or a man online,
Yeah.
and you can say, listen, I'm not romantically interested in you or anybody else.
Right.
I'll give you $100.
Yeah.
But this is what I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know about this, and this. An
Yeah,
exchange of, I'm coming over there.
Yeah, yeah.
How do I exchange money? How do I do this? How do I do that? What does it mean to do this? What does it mean to do that?
Right.
That I get. That's fair.
Yeah.
But as far as the whole romantic thing, again, I can't say it enough. I just think that get here. Get your feet on the ground.
Yeah.
Get organized.
That's the best advice at all.
It's meant to happen.
Don't even put the profile up.
No, don't even fool with it, and just sort of let life take care of itself.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, so let's just say that you've managed to make it over here. You've managed not to send all of the hard-earned money to somebody that vaporizes on you 2 days before you show up. What do you recommend to guys as far as having an emergency plan or a backup plan?
Great question.
Because you've seen guys go homeless. I've
Yeah.
seen guys
Yeah.
go homeless.
Homeless,
I
yeah.
got all involved with that John guy
Yeah.
a few years ago.
Right.
You've helped a guy get repatriated
Yeah.
back to the States.
Yeah.
What takes a guy that comes over here who's perfectly logical, good thinking, normal human being,
Right.
and they just hit that wall. They crash and they burn.
Right.
What is your recommendation, or what is your advice, or how would you help these guys watch this so that doesn't happen to them?
Yeah. So, as you might imagine, this is kind of all interrelated. It's sort of unrealistic view of yourself and unrealistic view of the expectations you have when you come over. Really, you need to look at what your budget's going to be, and you need to stay within budget, and you need to monitor that quickly, and then you also need what I call an emergency fund, and so you need to. I recommend that you come over even before you move here. You buy a round trip ticket, whatever country or countries you're thinking of moving to. You know, maybe you're going to go to, maybe you're thinking Southeast Asia, because a lot of we're on Paul's channel, Paul's in the Philippines, but a lot of the men that come over to Southeast Asia, they're thinking, do I want Philippines? Do I want Thailand?
Right.
Do I want Malaysia? Do I want Vietnam?
Right. Right.
Where do I want to live? And so there's many factors to that, like that people consider, and one of them obviously is money. And so if you're going to have any sort of budget, which we all do, let's face it, you need to know whether or not you can live in whatever country you're going to picking, and what will your budget be. And you can watch my videos, you can watch Paul's videos, you can watch our guest stars. We both interview people. And really what it costs someone else to live somewhere, that's their data point. That's not you.
That's right.
The only way you can figure out what's going to cost you to live somewhere is to go there and put your feet on the ground. And then you have to do some research once you're there. You have to go and look at apartments or houses or whatever it is you expect to live in, and you have to see what they cost. And then you have to, how much are they per month? And where are they in the city? How are you going to get to the market? Are you going to ride a scooter? Are you going to ride tricycles or jeepneys? Or are you going to buy a car? And you have to imagine what this life is going to be that you're going to live over here. And you have to put each one of the pieces in. I'm going to get a scooter. Okay, how much is a scooter? Let's say you shop, it's $1,200. Okay, your rent's, let's say you figured out your rent's going to be $400. You're going to pay $1,200 for a scooter. Is the place you're renting furnished or unfurnished? Do you have to furnish it? What does a couch cost? What is a coffee table? So you go right, this research involves you putting your feet on this ground, seeing what the apartments are, finding if it's furnished or not. If you want to get unfurnished, then you go to the furniture store and see what the furniture costs. You look at what the scooter costs you, and then you go and figure out what restaurants do I want to eat in. Do I want to eat in expat style restaurants where they're going to sell me burgers and spaghetti and pizza and I don't know, maybe like Chinese food, or are you going to eat in Filipino style restaurants? And then where are you going to shop? Are you going to shop in like a supermarket like you do in the U.S.? We have that sort of thing here, Robinsons, Hypermart, and the price is a little higher, but some of the same foods you won't find everything you eat at home. But you do have to come in and say, what am I going to buy? What does it cost? Am I cooking at home? How many days a week? And you want to, it takes some work, but you have to go through these numbers and you have to estimate about what it's going to cost to live here. And then you have to decide, what could go wrong here? Like, am I going to buy health insurance, or am I just going to have my health insurance back in the U.S. and fly home for problems? Like some of the seniors here in Southeast Asia do, or Mexico. Uh-huh. They just have their Medicare in the U.S. and they figure they'll just pay the $10-20 for doctor visits wherever they are in the world and buy the meds as needed. But if they got heart disease or something like that, they'll fly home and get care. Or do you want to get an insurance policy here? And so it's just one foot in front of the other, finding out information so that your eyes are open when you make a final decision. And then there's what I call an emergency fund. You also need an emergency fund Everyone has their own number in mind. I set mine a little higher than probably some people do because I travel around the world. I've been to about 67 countries, and I never know where I'm going to be in the world when something goes wrong or what it will cost. So mine's a little higher. But I don't know. Like I suggest that once you know what your budget is, that you have maybe a year or two. Personally, I would set my emergency budget at 36 months. So take whatever your monthly expense is going to be after you figured it out in this place, and then 36 exit and have that off to the side somewhere.
So if my budget's $1,000 a month,
right.
I got 36K.
I'd put 36K aside.
And I still got my $1,000 a month coming in.
Coming in. So you set that aside, you live off the 1,000. You don't start dipping into that, because if you have a heart attack or you have a stroke or you get cancer, now 36,000 is not a lot of money in the U.S., but you'll find in places like Thailand, in some parts of the Philippines, that you can, stuff that might cost you $100,000 in the U.S., you might be able to get done in some of these foreign countries for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000.
Right.
I mean, I was in the hospital in India, and I was in the hospital for 5 days, and the whole bill. This is 10 years ago now, so I'm not saying that's India's. Actually, it's more than 10 years ago now. It's probably 15 years ago. But my hospital bill with 3 doctors, a hotel room for 5 nights, all the food, all the testings, MRIs. The sound one, I can't remember the imaging with sound, and IV drip and X-rays and all this stuff. The whole bill was $1,600, 1,600 US. At the time I was working in India, and I had $200 deductible, but I showed that to family friends at the time, and they said in a U.S. hospital that would have been between $40,000 and $80,000.
Wow.
And it depends whether it was a regional kind of hospital or a big city hospital kind of thing. But now I would think, and that was 15 years ago, now going to an emergency room in the U.S., you might spend $5,000 the first day. So it's quite a bit different, and healthcare is much cheaper. It still is much cheaper overseas than it is in the U.S. So that's why I set it at 36, because I'm not sure where I'll be when the trouble happens. But some people I hear set a number at 10,000 or 20,000, and so that's something you have to decide, and it's something you have to decide in conversation with someone you trust, whether maybe you have an accountant, and then maybe your CPA, or maybe you have a medical doctor that you see before you leave your home country, and you could talk about what the risks are and what it would cost in your country. Like, Europeans have insurance; they can often fly home to solve problems.
Yeah.
But as Americans, we don't have that luxury. We either buy the Medicare, senior care, or we buy insurance, whatever we can in the U.S., or we buy it overseas. And so you're just assembling a lot of data. It's country dependent, it's lifestyle dependent,
yes,
and it's something that nobody can do for you. And it's something you have to do for yourself, because I don't know what kind of place you're going to want to live in. I don't know where you're going to eat. I don't know what kind of alcohol you drink. Do you want to drink 20-year-old scotch and smoke cigars and eat steak and potatoes every night?
Right.
It can cost more to do that in the Philippines
than it can back home.
Yeah. Right, because
exactly.
Your 20-year-old scotch is it's in every liquor store, but here it's like a fancy imported thing, so it might even cost more.
Yeah.
And like a can of Campbell's soup in the U.S., I don't know what it is today because of inflation,
either.
but it might be $1.
Yeah.
Last time I saw it, or maybe a little less, 50 cents.
Yeah.
But over here, you might pay $2-3 for a can of Campbell's soup.
You know what? I went out and bought Campbell's chicken noodle soup.
Yeah.
For May and I.
Yeah.
Because we were both sick.
Okay.
And I said, I'm going to get some what's called Jewish penicillin.
Jewish penicillin.
And so I went and got Campbell's chicken noodle soup.
Okay.
And I made grilled cheese sandwiches.
I love that.
If this doesn't make you feel better, I don't know what will.
Comfort
and you know
food.
what? Yeah.
Comfort food.
And I actually did it. And we both were like, hey, I feel better. Well, I don't know what we had. We had a cold or something. But to get to your point, That chicken noodle soup was something like $2.75 for a tiny little can.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure you can pick it up for $1.
Right.
You know, but that's an imported product.
It's imported.
So
If you think about like
that's
croissants in the U.S. or I don't know what.
Yeah, man.
What like whiskey from Scotland or
Right.
something. It's very expensive. It's exclusive.
Right.
You're a big deal because you have it in your house or whatever. Campbell's soup is like that here. You could make soup here. You could make the same amount of soup here probably for $1, including
Yes.
all the ingredients, or
Yes.
maybe 50 cents.
Yes.
But if you want that Campbell's label and you want it, you want to buy it in the store here,
Sure.
you're going to pay through the nose. But that's why I say it matters where you shop. If you go to a Hypermart or Robinson's, you could easily double or triple your food bill. Whereas if you go to the public market and you buy tomatoes and onions and garlic and all, living food, and you bring it home and prepare it, it could easily be 20% of the cost of buying if you're going buying these prepackaged canned stuff, especially if it's imported.
So that's a mindset that these guys need to understand.
Yeah.
Now, one last thing.
Yeah.
One last disaster scenario. Or potential disaster scenario.
Okay.
Vacation mode.
Vacation mode.
Can you address that a
Yeah,
little bit?
and this is something you're gonna go through. So your whole life, hopefully, you've had enough money in your pocket that maybe once a year you go somewhere. I don't know where.
Right.
Maybe Vegas, or if you're in the UK, you're flying down to Paris or whatever, or maybe you're going to the Mediterranean. If you grew up, in I don't know where you live, but somewhere else in the world, you have some place you go to once a year. Maybe it's in your country, and you roll that week. You're at the pool.
Oh, yeah.
The cocktails are coming out, and
Yep.
yes, sir, here's
Credit
your cocktail.
cards going.
Yeah, you
Let's
go
light it
into
up.
your fine dining and restaurants. And so maybe your airfare and your hotel and everything costs you $1,000, $2,000, depends how far you're going. And then you get there and you blow another $1,000 or $2,000. So it's a $4,000 week. Heck no, with inflation now it's probably $6,000 or something, depending on how far you go. That's vacation mode. Now,
Right.
when you come to wherever, Philippines, Thailand, whatever, you can roll like that if you want to. In fact, I did when I was working. I came over to Thailand and I stayed in a place that had the pool, the swim up pool to my unit, and we went out to eat every night and went out dancing, and then we rode the wave runners and did the zip line and did all that scuba dive.
Right.
It adds up.
Right.
So now maybe you can do that for a month or two, but if you try to live like that when you go to a foreign country, hey, you could just take that number you spent. Let's say you spent $2,000 per week, just multiply it by 4, and now you have an $8,000 a month budget if you want to roll like a vacationer. And for most pensioners, certainly myself, I can't do that now that I'm retired. I have to rent by the month. I have to, if I can keep that rent down, I have to prepare foods at home. Maybe once or twice a month I'll go somewhere for the weekend, but it's maybe one night.
Sure.
It's in a really nice place.
Right.
Maybe we go out to a nice restaurant one night. But normally when we go to restaurants, it's more family style restaurants or local style restaurants. And so there's this vacation mode. When you first go overseas, you think, oh yeah, I remember how vacations work. Yeah, tonight it's steak and potatoes, and after that we're going to go over dancing. We're going to have some fancy scotch, and we're going to smoke cigars, and in the morning we're going to go scuba diving. When you first get somewhere, you want to just sort of explore and see what's going on. So you're going to blow some money just getting to know a place, but it's not really realistic to think about. When they say, "Oh, I'm gonna live like a king overseas for what it would cost me at home," no, you're not. You're gonna live like you did at home if you're lucky, because now you're on a pension. It's a reduced budget, right?
Yes.
And it'll be a good life because you're not working anymore and you're doing what you want every morning when you get up.
Sir.
But you can't blow money like you did when you're on vacation. So, I don't know. Vacation mode is something that you have to be careful of. And I don't know, it seems like a lot of the expats, my kind of methodology of thinking is maybe I still spend a week every year where maybe not blow that much money, but because we're on vacation all the time, we get on our scooter and go to a beach or
Right.
go somewhere nice.
Right.
But it's it's a buck in fuel and
Sure.
like a $3-4 lunch and snorkel maybe costs $5 to $3-4 to rent.
Right.
So the whole weekend we're probably out of there for $50, maybe 75.
Right.
So it's not like rolling vacation style like I did when I was working and flying
Right.
flying halfway around the world or whatever.
Sure.
But we try to get away every month and have a nice, or sometimes twice a month. And we try to do something one day a week, get somewhere fun, whether a waterfall or somewhere.
Right.
Maybe we pay $1 or $2 here or there, pay 20 pesos to the guy that parks the motorcycle, this kind of thing. But we're not spending money hand over fist like we did during vacation mode. But I tell you what, you give me a choice. Do I want that old life where I'm working working hard all year like that, and then I got a week where I'm blowing money like a drunken sailor, or do I want this? I'm going to take this every time.
All day long.
All day long. So
I think it's normal. I went through it. I think it's natural for anybody that first gets out of, I'm just going to say America,
Yeah.
and comes over here. It's almost impossible not to be in hurry-up vacation mode.
Absolutely.
You've probably watched, I don't know how many YouTube videos of guys like us or someone else that you're watching. Maybe you've been reading the news about places to retire. You watched the documentary, whatever the information was.
Yeah.
And I know that for myself, when I first got here, oh my gosh, I had to hurry up and get to this cafe because I saw it on so-and-so's channel.
Yeah.
And then I got to go to this waterfall because I saw this guy do it.
Yeah.
And it was like I was racing.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that when I was first out here, the first few months, I went with a friend and I went to go find the marine sanctuary. Couldn't find the marine sanctuary for love or money. And I got home. We looked for 3 or 4 hours. No sign that says marine sanctuary, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went home and I was all disappointed. And the person that I was with said, what's wrong with you? Why you look so sad? I said, well, I never found the marine sanctuary. And she said, well, it'll be there tomorrow. That was some of the wisest words I've ever heard. And I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. I was in vacation mode.
Yeah.
It was like I got to hurry up because I've only got 2 weeks of vacation, and then I got to go back to work.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I'm living here now. And that's I guess I'll leave it at that.
And that's an insight too about the Filipinos, the reason people are comfortable in this place.
Yeah.
It's because it's, it'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah. My wife's favorite word? Later. Well, that's I think that's a wrap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to finish this conversation.
Over on Dan's channel. Right up here.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Take care.